A computer virus destroyed 1,000 nuclear centrifuges, and no one saw it coming. Deep inside a desert facility in Natanz, Iran, a centrifuge spins at 1,064 rotations per second. The operators watch their screens. Everything reads normal. Temperature, vibration, speed, all within tolerance. But something is very wrong. The centrifuge is accelerating. 1,200 rotations per second. 1,300, 1,410. The aluminum tubes begin to vibrate violently. Bearings overheat. The rotor warps. And then it tears itself apart. Shrapnel flies inside the sealed casing. The operators rush to check their instruments. But the readings still say everything is fine. Because someone, from 6,000 miles away, has hijacked this machine. Not with a missile, not with a spy, with 500 kilobytes of computer code. It is the year 2009. And the world's first true cyberweapon has just been deployed. Over the next 12 months, more than 1,000 centrifuges will be destroyed in exactly the same way. Iran's nuclear ambitions will be set back by at least a year, and the entire attack will be carried out without a single soldier crossing a border. By 2005, Iran's nuclear program had become the most dangerous flashpoint in global security. At the Natanz enrichment facility, buried 8 meters underground and reinforced with 2.5-meter thick concrete walls, thousands of IR-1 centrifuges spun uranium hexafluoride gas at supersonic speeds to enrich it toward weapons-grade material. The International Atomic Energy Agency had documented Iran's violations of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The United Nations Security Council had passed multiple rounds of sanctions. Diplomatic pressure was failing, and Israel was openly discussing a preemptive military strike before Iran crossed the nuclear threshold. But a conventional attack carried enormous risks. Natanz was one of the most heavily fortified facilities on the planet. A bombing campaign could scatter radioactive material across the region, contaminating civilian areas for decades. It would unite the Iranian public behind the regime. It would likely draw in Hezbollah, Hamas, and potentially Russia and China in diplomatic retaliation. And it would almost certainly trigger a wider war across the entire Middle East. The estimated cost of a military operation against Iran's dispersed nuclear sites exceeded $100 billion. The geopolitical price was incalculable. So the United States and Israel chose a path that had never been attempted in the history of warfare. Sometime around 2005, under President George W. Bush, a classified program with the code name Olympic Games was authorized at the highest levels of government. The mission was unprecedented. Build a piece of software that could cross an air gap, meaning a network completely disconnected from the internet, infiltrate industrial control systems, and physically destroy nuclear centrifuges, all without anyone knowing it was happening. The National Security Agency, the NSA, and Israel's Unit 8200, one of the most elite signals intelligence agencies on Earth, began building what would become the most sophisticated cyberweapon ever created. They called it Stuxnet. Stuxnet was unlike anything the cybersecurity world had ever seen. At 500 kilobytes, it was enormous for malware at the time, and every single byte was purpose-built for a single objective: physical destruction. The attack began with a USB drive. The American and Israeli teams had identified 5 Iranian contractor companies that regularly serviced the Natanz facility. These contractors moved between the outside world and the air-gapped Natanz network. An infected USB drive was introduced into one of these companies, likely Foulad Technic Engineering, an industrial automation firm based in Isfahan. From there, Stuxnet spread through Windows computer networks, exploiting not 1, not 2, but 4 separate zero-day vulnerabilities. Zero days are security flaws that the software maker, in this case Microsoft, does not know exist and has never patched. On the black market, a single zero-day can sell for $250,000 or more. No known malware had ever used more than 1 zero-day at a time. Stuxnet used 4 simultaneously. To avoid detection by antivirus software, The worm carried stolen digital certificates from two legitimate companies in Taiwan, Realtek Semiconductor and J-Micron Technology. These certificates made Windows treat the malicious code as trusted, verified software. Once inside the Natan's network, Stuxnet did something remarkable. It searched specifically for Siemens S7-300 programmable logic controllers, the specialized industrial computers that controlled the variable frequency drives spinning the centrifuges. If it did not find these exact Siemens controllers on the network, it did absolutely nothing. It lay dormant, invisible, waiting. When it found its target, Stuxnet executed its payload with surgical precision. It periodically accelerated centrifuges from their normal operating speed of 1064 Hz to 1410 Hz, far above their design tolerance. Then it slowed them to just 2 Hz, nearly stopping them. Then back to normal. These sudden, violent speed changes stressed the aluminum centrifuge rotors past their physical limits. Bearings failed. Rotors cracked. Centrifuges shattered from the inside. And the entire time this was happening, Stuxnet replayed pre-recorded normal sensor data to the operator's monitoring screens. It was a man-in-the-middle attack on physical reality itself. The Iranians could see nothing wrong on their instruments. So they replaced centrifuges, fired engineers for incompetence, suspected manufacturing defects in the centrifuge components, and even blamed the fundamental design of the IR-1 centrifuge itself. For more than a year, they never once suspected that software was the cause. For over a year, the attack worked perfectly. According to IAEA reports, Iran's enrichment output dropped roughly 30% between November 2009 and January 2010. An estimated 1,000 centrifuges were destroyed out of approximately 9,000 installed at Natanz. Iran's nuclear program was set back by 1 to 2 years, all without a single bomb being dropped. But then something went wrong. In 2010, a new, more aggressive version of Stuxnet was deployed. Whether by design flaw or operational decision, this variant spread far beyond Natanz. It escaped into the wild through an infected laptop connected to the internet. Within weeks, it had spread to over 100,000 computers across 115 countries. On June 17, 2010, a Belarusian security researcher named Sergei Yulisin, working at a small antivirus firm called Virus Blockada, identified a strange piece of malware on a client's machine in Iran. He posted his findings publicly. Within days, major antivirus firms, Symantec, Kaspersky, and Microsoft, were racing to decode the most sophisticated piece of malware ever discovered. In September 2010, a German industrial control systems researcher named Ralph Langner made the breakthrough. He identified that the malware was specifically targeting Siemens PLCs and manipulating centrifuge speeds. For the first time, the cybersecurity community understood what they were looking at. This was not a piece of criminal software. This was a weapon. The political fallout was immense. Iran publicly acknowledged that its centrifuges had experienced problems, but blamed Western sabotage without naming the specific method. In June 2012, New York Times journalist David Sanger published a detailed account confirming that Stuxnet was a joint operation by the United States and Israel under the code name Olympic Games. The leak reportedly came from within the Obama administration. General James Cartwright, the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was later investigated and pleaded guilty to making false statements to the FBI about the disclosure. Stuxnet's legacy extends far beyond Iran. It opened Pandora's box. After Stuxnet, researchers discovered a family of related cyber tools: Decoded in 2011 for intelligence gathering, Flame in 2012 for surveillance, and Gauss for tracking financial transactions. All bore hallmarks of the same developers. But the most significant consequence was Iran's response. Rather than retreating, Iran invested heavily in building its own offensive cyber capability. Iranian hackers have since targeted banks, dams, casinos, and government networks across the United States and its allies. Saudi Aramco lost 35,000 computers to the Shamoon wiper attack in 2012, widely attributed to Iran. Stuxnet proved that code could destroy physical infrastructure, and every nation on Earth took notice. Today, Stuxnet's code is publicly available online. Security researchers have fully documented its entire architecture, every exploit, every evasion technique, every line of PLC manipulation code. And those techniques have been studied, copied, and improved upon by state and non-state actors across the globe. The attack cost an estimated $1 to $2 million to develop. A conventional military strike against Natans would have cost over $100 billion and risked thousands of lives. In that calculus, Stuxnet was the greatest bargain in the history of warfare. But it established a profoundly dangerous precedent. Every power grid, every water treatment plant, every hospital, every factory with automated industrial controls is now a potential target for the same kind of attack. The same Siemens industrial control systems that Stuxnet exploited run critical infrastructure in every developed nation on Earth. Power plants in the United States, water systems in Europe, manufacturing lines across Asia. And the uncomfortable truth is that most of these systems are still running software that is decades old, with minimal cybersecurity protections, often connected to the internet with default passwords. In 2021, a hacker tried to poison a water treatment plant in Oldsmar, Florida, by increasing sodium hydroxide levels to 100 times normal concentration. The same class of industrial control systems, the same vulnerability. Stuxnet destroyed 1,000 centrifuges in an Iranian desert, but it built something far more dangerous than any nuclear weapon, the blueprint for cyberwar. The age of digital weapons did not begin with a formal declaration of war. It began with 500 kilobytes of code and a USB drive, carried across the threshold of a contractor's office in Isfahan, Iran. If this story kept you watching, subscribe to Cyber Decoded. Next, we are covering the biggest bank hack in history, where a single group stole over $1 billion from banks across 30 countries. You do not want to miss it.